office. She was, of course, supportive of Will County, understands it's a major region for the state and the country. I mean, the freight study showed that. So we left that feeling pretty good. And it was kind of an in-and-out visit, but an important visit because we've really made investments in telling the narrative and getting the hard data from the county that when we put in competitive grants, we can show there are metrics. These are impacts on the region. These are impacts on the nation. That has led to our effort to put forward a Tiger application. Tiger is kind of the large dollar competitive grant program out of the Secretary's Office of Department of Transportation. It's funded on an annual basis as long as Congress funds it through the appropriations process. We'll be submitting the project for, we request the entire delegation as well as local businesses and local governments. We've had a good reception to the request letters. We already have roughly 4 of the 8 members of the delegation, and we've asked them to have those letters to us by the end of the week when we submit the application for Tiger. The deadline to submit that is next Monday, October 16th. So, we went into Washington, we provided information, got some good feedback, and now we're putting that into the effort on Tiger. So I think we're moving along and moving forward, and of course the first step was really studying the freight need, but now we're going after the federal dollars, and I think that's critical. So if anyone has any questions, I'm open to that, but we're looking forward to getting an entire application.
I have questions about the Tiger, but I'll call you on that.
Okay.
Any questions, comments? Anyone? No? Okay, Brett?
Yeah, I think this is it's a nice quiet day. It's a little sleepy, it's a little cloudy here in Joliet, so.
Well, I hope you don't have the humidity that we have. It feels like a rainforest here in Washington the last 4 or 5 days.
We need rain.
You and the West Coast, that's awful what's happening in wine country.
Wine country, of all places where Mother Nature had to hedge, First it's my beaches, now
right.
And all those people misplaced, it's terrible. All right, well, thank you. And later this morning, if we could talk, that would be for, no, that's Thursday, you leave. I was thinking we were going to be out of town, but I will give you
give you a ring.
I will. All right,
okay.
Thank you.
All right, everyone have a nice morning.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Now on to our state. Say something.
Hi. Hi.
I just go for Brett. Brent?
Brent.
Brent?
Yeah,
I just say it like all in like one syllable.
I know. Everybody does that all day.
But do they call you Susan? All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm here. I know you want to set your priorities for the upcoming session.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Everybody, if you want to look to see what our priorities were, in fact, last year, if you go onto our website, onto the iPad, and you pitch legislative, and then it goes down and it shows what our agenda is. So if there's any question,
So, Madam Chairman, if you just want to go through the agenda from last year, some of the issues are still prevalent, obviously, and unless there's some other new ones. Tom has some issues that we're looking into, and so I'd be more than happy. The electronic recycling has kind of come to a conclusion. Thanks a lot of effort from Will County and participating in that. That has kind of Margaret McDermott kind of took over, I'm sorry, Natalie Manley kind of took over after Emily McCasey left and kind of wrapped that up. So that's pretty much, I don't know if you want to continue having that on as part of the priority. Pollution control devices are still a prevalent issue that's going to be a perennial issue for us that we have to continue to monitor and watch. Obviously, the clean construction demolition debris has come to the forefront after a very interesting spring session with a piece of legislation that dealt with allowing operators of these facilities to be able to sell off a proportion of the facility without, I'm not sure why they brought this piece of legislation forward, but we were very successful in tapping it down in the Senate. And out of that came some interesting, the Illinois EPA went out, for some reason they've never done this before, and I know Waste is in the audience, they might have some understanding of this too, but they basically went out and decided to test all the clean construction demolition sites for the first, I think for the first time throughout the state. Not exactly sure what inspired the EPA to do this, but to make a long story short, once they got the results back, they found out that there was a high, almost an 80% level of violations at these facilities.
Shocking.
And as you know, we've been beating this drum for a long time, and this is probably the first piece of, other than us complaining, it's probably the first piece that kind of woke up a lot of other people's eyes and made them aware of there could be a problem with our existing testing of these facilities.
Oh, really?
So the notice of violation went out this past Friday. We're not exactly sure on each site what it means until somebody with some more can look at it and tell us and interpret. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pushback. The Illinois EPA, I think, is a little concerned about their existing testing procedures now and want to do some changing. Been in contact with our General Assembly members who have kind of championed this cause for us. So we'll probably be having a piece of legislation that we introduced last year coming forth again. And obviously there'll be, again, a strong pushback of why there's, I don't know how to explain this group, but they're different. And they're very, they have a very good organization down in Springfield. And so we've still got an uphill battle.
But Brent, what we talked about, which we've been talking about all summer, and everybody knows, I kind of went on tour and did a little homework myself. And the one thing that I'm not understanding that we're not going for is why are we not testing these loads better? Like you're saying, the testing on it, because that's what I'm finding. Granted, there's stuff that's in there that needs to be cleaned up, that needs to be definitely evaluated and see where that is all at. The only way we can do it is for our monitoring. But why can we not also go on the legislative side of getting some changed of the testing methods? Because now I'm finding out, and even the owners are saying, they come up, it's easy, they just take a little wand. There has to be a better way, more stringent way of going in and testing these loads before it gets in. Like, why can't we be proactive instead of reactive? Why can't we get in there and have, I mean, I wish we had land use here too, because I know I've talked with Mr. Paddock about this.
Interesting is I think that when, first of all, these sites were prior to, I forget what year it was, they weren't even regulated. Once the regulation came in, they determined that basically they developed this legislation. There's a long fight, as we all aware, when this did not include groundwater monitoring. It went on for a couple of years at the Pollution Control Board where we fought back and forth. There's a lawsuit that was recently settled. We didn't prevail in the lawsuit, but that's based on the underlying law. It wasn't based on actual facts. But the underlying law, they found out that was being followed by the EPA, the Pollution Control Board. So I think this is the first time that we have had and I don't heard that they actually tested the sites. And you have to understand, this is just one test for, 30, 40, 50, 60 acre site, one little test, and 80% of them came up with some contamination of some form. And Dean could probably speak a little bit better to the
Is that what this
underlying.
report is going to show, what
And
the
just got
content?
'em, so that's why I'm actually
No.
looking them over while
No, keep
you guys are
looking.
talking, so.
Keep looking at
trying
it,
to
'cause I have a
catch
couple
up,
questions,
so,
because, right, when we say
Sorry about
contamination,
that.
that's such a blanket, like, all over.
Yeah.
So, make a long story short, is that this is the first time that we've seen some, actually, I think the EPA, I think they were actually surprised that they found out this level of contamination or level of testing, that, because they never tested before. This is all based upon self-regulation. The whole thing is based upon self-regulation. And anybody can tell you, self-regulation has a lot of room for error. And so.
So are you saying we can't do anything and
No.
to add on also before we can?
No, I think the agency itself is actually taking some steps in changing the way they are proceeding with what they have underneath the existing statute.
So there's new people in place there, is that?
No. This is, as you know,
I'm sorry. If I
Go ahead,
could just
jump in.
interject a little bit. You know, a lot of this was created with the rulemaking process before the Pollution Control Board, which is the lawsuit we have been fighting. And Brett alluded to the fact we just recently got the decision from the appellate court where we lost, fighting that they changed the rules to require more testing and to require the water monitoring wells. We are looking at petitioning the Supreme Court to review it, but it's an uphill battle, there's no question about that. But this was all at the rulemaking stage at the Illinois Pollution Control Board, and initially the IEPA was on board with us, and they did fight for water monitoring wells, but you had a board that had other interests. They were not interested in protecting the water. They had an industry that was more afraid of the testing results. They kept saying there's no test to show that there's been any contamination, well, because no testing had been done. But we knew from experience that when you have these self-monitoring industries, there are violations. And I also want to throw out, Steve Sylvester from the Attorney General's office was one of the biggest pushers to fight this. He kept the Attorney General's office interested, I think, and took this up the ladder. And he was passionate about this. We did lose the support of the EPA in the litigation once it got past the Illinois Pollution Control Board, but I'm very happy to hear that, they are now actually testing, because I think that will be the impetus to get some legislation, which is what we're going to need about this.
So,
Thank you.
I don't know what Brent told you, but I just counted there's 7 sites. That one uncontaminated soil site and 6 CCDD sites that received BNs, at least that I have copies of. So those were sampled in April, but the letters didn't go out until September 27th. And of course, I was bugging them for weeks and months and whatever. And I bugged even after I heard I was going to come here. I was like, why aren't you sending me? I know you sent those out. So anyway, I just got them 15 minutes ago, so that's why I'm.
Yeah, you don't have to say the sites out, please don't.
No,
But
no.
do you have them on there, what sites?
Yeah. Yeah, now, it's generally 2 parameters, in some cases it's 3. It's almost always iron on every one of them. Now, iron, and there's other people in this room that could probably say, but iron sometimes can be justified as naturally occurring. But there are some other parameters that are showing up, like mercury. Why is mercury in there? That's not good. There's chromium, selenium. Let's see if there's any other ones. Manganese. Manganese. What's that?
The CC, the VD, VN.
BN is a violation.
That's a violation notice.
What is this?
And then the
CC?
ground.
You called, you said,
CCDD is clean construction and demolition debris sites.
Okay.
And then there's soil owned, we have 2 of those now. We have one actually near Laraway landfill, it's not too far from there. and then the other one is up by 126. And so that just actually started, they didn't file.
It's funny how they call it clean construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, clean construction, that's what I say, so-called clean. But, yeah, I mean, Brent's, the thing is, you know, it may not be as bad nowadays as it was because they have to screen, but there is some loopholes still. I mean, you have
What do
these.
you mean they have to screen?
They're supposed to, before they take any load, they have to say whether it's contaminated or not. And if it had, they have to take a sample.
So they take a contaminated
But-
load?
Well, they can take it if it's real low, I suppose, if it's below MAC levels, okay? But there's contamination on a lot of soil, you know, I mean, you could go dig up around your yard and probably find
I
some
know that
kind of
too.
contamination. It's not like we live in a pristine, you know, this isn't
But
200,
there's
300
certain,
years ago.
so there's certain
You know,
levels.
yeah, right, and it might be from the air, it might be from whatever, you know, reason. But they sign on the dotted line, basically, if it's not, they'll say it's not contaminated, that's the owner, or it may be a professional geologist or a professional engineer. So, but if it is, if whatever sample they do take is supposed to be signed off on. So it's supposed to be done, you know, all above board.
Who's signing that when
you
those
know.
loads are coming in? When you say the owner, so the people that are you saying the owner of the
Property.
The property?
Property
Okay.
itself, yeah, or they hire someone.
And again,
They hire a
what do you mean they
professional.
hire someone?
Well, say they knew that there was a chance, say it wasn't farmland or something like that, where it wasn't impacted by industry or something along those lines, they might say, well, it's not, you know, it's never been used for any of those purposes, and the owner may sign off.
And then who's doing the testing?
Well, it would be they would hire someone, a PG or a PE,
Who would
to
hire
do
someone?
that, the owner, to see if it's
Or
within
the
the
operator
levels.
of the
The
site.
operator,
Or the-
well,
or the
You're
site-
talking the owner of, the property owner
No,
would
no,
hire
the
someone?
property owner, if he wants to dispose of something, they have somebody come in and test the soil, declare it as clean.
right,
And
that's what I'm
then you
saying.
would take the certification to the site and say, listen, we have it certified that this is clean fill.
Right, we're gonna bring loads, is that okay? And then they would have to have all that in the record, and then before they bring the first load.
Okay, so it was tested, so the people that are bringing that over, they get it tested, and then it gets tested again by whom? Then the owner of the property?
Well, they're
I'm
the
seeing,
people
like-
that they hire, they're supposed to have a PE or a PG sign that.
And a PE
So-
is a what? What is that?
A PE is a professional engineer, a PG is a professional geologist. So those are the two professionals that are allowed to sign that document. Unless they can prove that it's not contaminated. This is where the loophole is,
And how do they
okay?
prove it?
All right, so if somebody just says it's uncontaminated,
Well,
just because
give
it
an
works for
example.
them, you know?
Across the street, they're digging a foundation for my house this weekend. They're taking off probably 15 some odd loads of dirt. Don't know where that dirt went, but that would come from an uncontaminated site, quote unquote, because it was a subdivision. There's no prior history of industrial. There's no prior history, so that would be an uncontaminated site. So that could go without a test to that site. Now, 99% sure that that's probably not,
Right, but it could be,
but
you
you
never
never
know.
know what.
You never know.
And this little wand will tell you that.
No, that will want to only tell you the volatiles of certain.
Yeah. Well, the other,
Wait, Steve, did you have something you're
Yeah.
talking about?
When you're talking about loads, there's a lot of ways that the loads need to be checked, but before, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do any good unless you check it at the landfill when you dump it. So they have to see what was on the bottom, the middle, and the top.
Well-
Because and you know, when you're talking about loads of dirt, well, on a farm, what about when the farmer changes his oil and dumps it in the ground, and after
It's all
30
good.
years of
Steve, those are
oil
all
going,
relevant
so
questions.
the whole
They're all
point I'm
relevant.
trying to get at is, unless there's check at the point of dumping, then all that other stuff is irrelevant, because you don't know what you have until they dump it.
Well, there is a check, and it's called, but it's not adequate. It's PID, okay? And PID will get the volatile organic compounds. So stuff that you would, the oils and that type of thing. But then that's only the top of the load.
That's why I said you have
That's
to.
not the bottom
you
of the
need to have
load or
them-
the middle of the load.
You need to have them dump it,
Yeah.
and then have the, you need to
Right.
check the whole load.
Right, so if you want to make them, and the difference between them, I mean, the landfill may not double check them, the landfill, the lined landfill with groundwater monitoring, all that, they may not check them again because they also have a liner and they also have all that. So they may say, well, you don't make the landfill do it, but you know what, you don't have a liner and you're not willing to do groundwater monitoring either. So there's a little difference here.
Don, did you have a comment?
Yeah. How many quarries, I mean, how many quarries do we actually take clean construction debris in Will County?
9,
And how many quarries do we have that don't have clean construction debris coming into them yet?
I don't know, there
Because
could be 10 more.
My
that
thought
I'll-
is that we really need to get ahead of this. You know, the groundwater monitoring is great, it tells us that we've already jacked up the aquifer, right? And we've ruined a million people's wells. But if we're gonna let people start putting clean construction debris in any new quarries, and I know the ag producers are gonna scream like smashed cats, but if we're gonna, they're required to restore those properties. But if we're gonna put clean construction in any new quarries, they should have to go through the same process that a landfill does, where they have a line, they've got a rubber liner, they got a clay liner. They should have all the same protections for the aquifer that they have to put in a landfill.
Well, then you've got to get another department.
Well, then, I mean, so
The
we
mining
need different legislation or whatever, but
Yeah.
this whole thing that we've let, it wasn't us, I mean, the state let
Yeah.
people dump this stuff into these quarries and try and fill the quarries back up, right? We'd have been better off leaving them empty than to dump stuff
Sure.
in there that messes up the aquifer, right?
Probably so.
And now, if we've still got another 20 quarries or something in Will County that we're gonna let them do that to, we should require them to, Illinois EPA should require them, the Illinois legislature should require them to adhere to the same standards of construction that a landfill has to go through, to separate what they're putting in it from the aquifer.
Right, now you got a whole new opponent, so you got to deal with the mining folks too.
I know.
But I'm just letting you know, you got, if you're switching over,
Well,
which, it's a logical
Can I
question. Yes.
interject?
Thanks.
There's a fine line between doing it right and doing wrong. There is clean construction, so there is clean soil, there is clean demolition debris. You don't want to get to a point where you're costing the local contractor out of his business when he's digging a driveway out and he needs someplace to dump a load of clean dirt.
We got a place for dirty dirt.
Not dirty dirt, clean dirt.
We have a place for dirty dirt on Laramie Road.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, you also have to keep in mind that there is some logic behind, you're not gonna build a sanitary landfill in one of these quarries because of how they're located engineering wise. So there's some reclamation things, so we have to kind of balance the reality of the situation of not getting overboard, but yet making sure that what's going in there is actually clean. And I think the prior existing regulations that's been doing has been found out it's faulted, and they have to figure out a better way, and they have to do a better way of making sure that these guys who own these facilities are adhering to the rules and regulations. And I think it's a wild west right now, because if you go to any of these sites, just about, you could probably figure out a way to get around the rules and regulations. They're not the oversight is very lax, and I think that's what they're finding out. And
That's what I think we need to get before it gets into it. Like from now on, like, don't, okay, insult the injured, but if there's something we can do of having, and I gotta tell you, I talked with a couple of these quarry owners, and they were like, raise my chicken fees, do what, like, we would wanna know. Like, we honestly, this is what we're doing. This is not, we're not trying to hurt the environment here. This is what we have done. This is what we've been expected of. But that's how I learned about the wand and doing, I'm thinking the testing, it's, you know, poking all the way down. It's like Steve said, looking at all the layers.
well,
but
you know,
that's-
the one thing I think even Waste Management will indicate to you that the one thing that makes any kind of facility nervous is making sure the regulations are followed, like surprise inspections, things that come on where they know that somebody's going to be checking on them, and then there's violations, they'll be notified, and there's some kind of weight behind the violation. Nobody wants to, you know, just like now, first time we've seen this type of results. This has not been done in 6-7 years. So all of a sudden, boom, we got 80% non-compliance. Well, what do you do with non-compliance? Well, you figure out a way to start checking them again.
Make your job a little easier.
No, it's just that you have to hold their feet to the fire. When these guys tell you that they want to abide by the rules, they're full of, I can't say this
I have a
here,
question,
but-
and please, Dale, don't take this wrong. When we, when we're doing with the liners and they're doing it, of going through, so I'm assuming, because it seems like the landfills have to go live by higher standards. They've been doing this and they're going, so these sites would test all clean. There's no leakage that this wouldn't happen with them. I mean, this is something that,
Well, they're in the business of taking the contaminated soil.
okay.
So
they know how, that's
have-
why I never understood how they can take that.
Well, when you, okay, like
And the liners
a
protect
couple
them.
years ago, when they had to go through the siting, right? They had to spend a year in advance studying that, or more, studying the sites that they're going to. You know, drilling down, looking at the geology, making sure it's all good. And then they put the application together, they have to test for a long period of time, make sure the water, they know where the water is. Then they get approval from us or whoever the
Right.
local site, then they get approval from the EPA, and then they can build, and then they still have to, you know, if they want to do 10 acres, they got to ask for permission, you know, to get that approved. So we'll come out, in that case, we don't come out to Prairie View because we own the site. The EPA does, and they'll check and make sure everything is there. It's signed off by a third party, independent third party, so it's not waste management. They do hire the firm, but they have all the documentation there. So it's all has to be done, there's so many layers,
So
you know,
why do they
before
have
they
to
can
do
take
that?
1 ounce of
And the
waste.
quarries
Well,
don't
because in
have to.
garbage is garbage. Garbage is different than what you're talking about. This is what the argument will be. Is garbage, when you throw out your garbage, you have a whole lot of stuff mixed in there. And so that's why they have to go through this extraordinary effort to make sure that the leachate or the
Right.
moisture that's collected
the gas.
and the gas and everything else is making sure that doesn't get down. But you're talking apples to oranges here. You're not talking exactly the same thing.
Well,
So-
this is bricks, this is, you know,
So why
rocks,
wouldn't people-
but it's also the soil, and
So
that's
why
where
would-
it comes in.
Why wouldn't that construction, okay, so you're talking, you got this, you know you have some hot loads, why would they just go, okay, we're not gonna deal, we don't have to go through these hoops, we're just gonna go right over and take it to the landfill, and not a quarry?
Cost.
Well,
Oh,
it's
is
a
it that-
huge difference.
Is there a huge
I
difference?
mean, it might be a third or less of the cost to go to the CCDD site. Yeah. It's all about money.
It's all about money.
That's always about
Mr.
money.
Jan,
Yeah.
the quarries, the ag producers that own the quarries are required to restore that land. So they have to fill that hole back up. So to them, maybe it's not so much making money off the load as it is getting the hole filled.
It's all money to them.
But that's
There-
gonna
there's
fill their
zero-
landfill,
there-
that much
there's-
faster.
There's zero overhead. What is their overhead?
Right.
They have a guy sitting in a trailer waiting for someone to show up. That's it. That's all they pay. Go to the hole in the ground, dump it, you're gone.
Well, that
These
clearly-
guys have spent millions of dollars just to get to that point, and they have a whole army of people. And then they got a guy on the site making sure he's doing it right, make sure it goes to the right spot, make sure the dozer guy has to
So
cover
Dean,
it
why
up just
haven't
right,
we
all that
done,
stuff.
because this has
Yeah.
been your thing, you're our expert, you're our county expert, you're trying to keep Will County residents, we're
Yeah.
all safe, we got good water, and we
Yeah.
got safe quarries of what's coming in.
Yeah.
So why haven't we been talking more about what is coming in? That's where I just can't get,
Well-
we're talking about once it's in, and I know we're kind of coming at the 11th hour, but like Don said, for future.
Well, we
How
have.
can
I
we
mean,
change
I
this?
mean, the thing
I know
is
it's nothing moves fast.
all these meetings that I've been going to for 8 years, I mean, PCB hearings and all the other meetings and letters that I've written, it's all about testing. It's all about testing. But the bottom line is you have to make sure that it's tested before it goes in. But you also we also want to make sure, because 70% of us are on groundwater, that whatever is in there now, what was in there up
Yeah,
until even
absolutely now.
6-7
But I'm
years ago.
saying, we're
when
talking
they
like, that. I liked how Don had even mentioned, like on future, like this is
Yeah.
what we're doing, we have all these other quarries, so this
Right.
is of now, and Mary, I think is gonna answer that.
Well, it's up to the pollution control board. They are the entity that was supposed to
But
set
we
the
can't change
rules. You, as a county board, cannot change it. This is why we've gone to litigation. This is why several years ago, I don't know if you remember, county board, through land use, sent a letter to the Illinois Pollution Control Board Dean and his crew went and testified. The state attorney's office sent a letter urging them to set rules that required groundwater monitoring. They wouldn't do it. There's a lot of political pressure to keep the cost down at the CCD sites. And theoretically, if they worked properly, it would be okay, because it would be clean construction and demolition debris that would be going in, and it would be okay. But there's a big financial incentive to not monitor carefully. There is nothing to hold the engineers who sign off on this accountable, because you've dumped that load. 5 years ago, 5 years or 10 years down the road, when we find contamination, you're not gonna know what load it came from, right? So there's no one to hold them accountable. So.
I think the most important thing too is to note the eye opener of this testing has made the EPA much more concerned about what's going on. So I mean, not to sit here and say the Roman's running, but we've come a long way. I don't know how to express other than we finally got the attention of a lot of people who were not paying attention before because of this. And because this little piece of legislation
House Bill 278, that's going to affect obviously the LGDF funds. I've seen the votes come down, passed in the House. I know they wanted, he really has a desire for them to call it at the Senate in the veto session. Now with that, that would basically bring back our pre-budget levels of the LGDF fund to the local municipalities, counties, et cetera. I see, obviously, there's two arguments to this, to the whole thing. One, obviously, the negative impact on the budget that they just passed versus, you know, the positive impact on county and local municipality budgets. I was just curious if you could shed some insight on where that may be heading or where that, what that looks like right now in Springfield.
I wouldn't say anything's dead in Springfield, but again, once they finally pass the budget, they have a tendency, unless there's something dramatically, and I know in local government this is dramatic, but what you keyed in on is first thing, if for some reason they change something and they lose a period of money, then they have to figure out a way to either cut something else or raise revenue some other place. I found out over my years in Springfield, 20 plus years in Springfield, that not a lot happens in veto session, in particular related to, unless there was a glaring error that they had to clarify or do something. I doubt if we'll see it in veto session. I think the shot next year is how do you handle going forward on a lot of these issues affecting local government. It's, you know, obviously it's known what they did this year. That's going to be a base of argument going forward next year about what, if there is going to be a budget. As again, it's a political year. I'm not sure how it's going to shake out. We do have a sizable amount of lame ducks, which is always an unknown.
What number are we at now? Like 82, what?
I mean,
21?
It's got to be approaching 20 plus, and there'll probably be some more. But we're getting a point, so there's a lot of people, if they stick it out through the term, there might be some that step down, but if they stick it out, you'll have a lot of people out there that have their, you know, they can pretty much do as they want. So I'm not going to say there's not going to be a budget, but it's again, after 2.5 years and not 3 years of not having a budget and finally having one, there was a lot of relief. But again, you know, even IDOT had indicated, they sent out a thing that they're cutting their budget by $300 million. So instead of $2.1 billion, I think we're down to $1.7 billion for the IDOT budget. So that's going to have an impact on local roads. So there's still going to be some jacking going on with this existing budget. So I don't know. I mean, Ray, if there's a
The other
chance.
half of the equation is the administrative fee too. I know they want, he has another bill in there that talks about cutting that in half too. So when you look, I mean, for a county like Will County, we're losing $2.3 or $2.4 million as it sits right now from the financial side. You know, and these two bills, if passed, would significantly reduce the amount of money that we're losing. So obviously we have a vested interest in following these. However, you know, a lot of local municipalities have already started making plans of raising sales tax, they're raising fees, they're doing a lot of things just to cover the shortfall. And it just seems like, you know, the residents of Illinois just get pounded over and over. And then, once they get the pounding at the local level, then they revert back to the other fees. Now all of a sudden, everyone's getting more and more and more money, and the resident is just left holding the ball again. It's very frustrating.
I want to be honest, you know, it's about what I see the objective. We're still running, you know, according to the governor, the budget's still not in balance.
No.
So if you start taking away 60 million here, 100 million somewhat, we're then somewhere it becomes way more unbalanced at the state level. Not to suggest that it doesn't hurt the locals, obviously it does. But right now I don't know if they'll reopen that wound right now without trying to figure out a way that they can make up the money. Unfortunately, in the Lucas bill, I mean, there's nothing to offset that dollars. I mean, he's not saying, okay, we'll do it here for local governments, but, you know, here's what we should do to replace the revenue, or here's what we should cut. Everybody's good about introducing, and I love Anthony, he's a great legislator, and I know he means well because he's a former mayor. He's got this right on his heart, I understand that. But, you know, the argument's going to be is, okay, how do you make up the revenue, or where are you willing to cut someplace else? And you know, everybody faces that. And so I just don't know if we'll see that happening in the veto session.
I'll have to say 2 words, the jury bill. that went down on video session, so I don't know. Anyway. Steve, don't make me regret this.
You know, when we're talking about what the state did to us, they refused to address their irrational spending behavior, so they turn around and tax the local government and tell us to raise taxes to fund their bad behavior. You wouldn't do that with your kids. So I suggested that we have an origination fee that we charge the state for all the taxes that they're collecting out of Will County. We charge them a fee, so we get our money back. You know, and then if they don't like it, well, they can have an argument with us, take us to court or whatever they got to do. But the point of the thing is, why should all the local governments pay for irrational spending? You know, if the state is going to be refusing to cut anywhere, and then they just say, let's raise taxes. Revenue means taxes, so let's find new taxes. So pretty soon, what are they going to charge the air? You know, now they're going to give back the soda tax in Cook County, and the state was probably thinking about doing the soda tax. So, you know, I'm just pointing it out. The people that live in our districts don't want to see any more increases. They're all hurting for money, and then the state tells us basically, raise the taxes for us. So I'm asking, why can't we do an origination fee and charge the state a fee for all the taxes that are collected out of Will County?
Do you want to comment?
Really?
One second.
You said you were going to control them, obviously, when that happens happen. Steve, okay, if this requires legislation, I don't think it will go anywhere, first of all. And let me tell you the argument about the 2% handling fee. The state was going to use the administration fee as an argument that they collect it for the county, they enforce it for the county, and they also go after the deadbeats who don't pay it. They have a cost to doing that part of the business. If you are a business and collect sales tax in Illinois, you get a percentage off for actually collecting that sales tax as a business to do that. So the state's kind of using that same theory about on their RTA tax about administrative fee. They're saying, hey, we have to collect, we have to get it. It's the cost of us doing it, so we're passing it on for collecting your tax. That's the argument that they're using. So to suggest that somehow that, and you also have to remember that 2008 when that RTA tax was passed, they gave that to the county for their infrastructure support, and then they expanded upon that to use it for public safety, which I think you guys are using for road building and for the courthouse. So it was a gift from the state at the time to allow different collar counties to be able to use that sales tax for different things to help improve their areas. So it'd be a very difficult argument for me to try to sell it to legislators what you just said. So I understand your concerns and your pain, and I think everybody's unhappy with the state right now. I'm sure that's nothing new, but I don't think that would fly. So.
Thank you. Tom?
I disagree, but
I
that's okay.
I think last month I brought together my proposal on parking of commercial vehicles.
I thought, Barry, did you have something on that, though? Didn't you come back and say we couldn't do it?
You know, I'll have to check. I had Kevin looking into that for me. I don't think it was supposed to be reported back to this committee, so.
Well, I think Eustis had said that they would give it to this committee for handling.
Maybe it's going to be on to the next one, because it's not on to our agenda. We were talking about priorities.
Unless if you have to change the legislature.
I think we need to define the regulation more. I had written it up based on county regulations of parking, but this is a township road, and we don't really have the authority to impose it on a township road. So we need jurisdiction. Well, I realize that. That's why I think it should be a legislative agenda that something that we'd have to ask Springfield to do, because we can't do it ourselves. So
The issue is, we can't just take jurisdiction over one, we can't take away one power from the township and then leave the rest to them. I think what you're trying to do is bifurcate, you know, okay, we'll control this part of your powers now, you can do the rest. And I don't know if they're willing to, a township would be willing to give that up as well.
Well, we don't have a power. I think that's why we need to have a little more insight from a legal perspective, how this could be taken, how this could be carried out. I'm not an attorney. I would like to have an attorney look into it. We have state's attorneys, you're an attorney.
Tom, if you want to meet with Mary and I, we'll look into it more.
Okay.
What you're saying is what I thought that was the end.
Kevin gave us more about it
Yes.
last time. So,
Well, he didn't really say very much. He just said that he didn't have any authority, but I'm trying to get authority from the state to carry this out. Thank you.
Don, are you going to?
Step out for a second. Call.
Okay. You don't have anything? Because we're about ready to adjourn. Well, what I would like to do, and we were discussing this on the way in, about us setting with our priorities for next year. And the book, which I just handed over to Reagan, we're going to pretty much, it's going to be the same. I would like for us to go look at it. I think there's a couple of things that we can maybe.
Well, we didn't talk about, I know you guys had a conversation about a small cell tower.
Oh,
That's
yes.
an ongoing process down here. You know, there's some talk about, some of the other counties are doing some stuff. You know, I sent you, Suzanne, the comment back from, they had a meeting last week, which we were not aware of. I don't know if anybody in the county was aware of it. They had a meeting with local governments, and they had a point-by-counterpoint proposal from the proponents to the opponents that was discussed. You know, right now, I think it's playing out. I think they're trying to find a negotiated solution. So my suggestion is that we just kind of watch this play out and see where it goes and not take a position at this point.
For this month, if you can kind of give a quick reminder of everyone that doesn't
Well,
talk
there-
about this
there,
every day like we do.
All the, basically, mobile phone operators, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, there's new technology apparently allows them to place these smaller type, cell-type towers on like lamp posts, utility posts and whatnot to provide a better, and believe me, I'm not a technical person, I would assume 5G or something. Signals, both to enhance service to certain areas. They've been doing this in certain states, and when they approached Illinois to do this, they had that legislation so that they wouldn't have to try to negotiate with each individual, basically municipality or county to get like a franchise similar to what the cables have to do. And this would be able to allow them to have a one statewide to operate under. And there's been some pushback, in particular up in Lake County, about the Northwest Municipal League. They've been the ones that seem to be driving this. About the bottom line, I think there's a cost. They want to make sure that there's a rental cost that the municipalities and counties get per pole, and that's been kind of the sticking point. Appearance-wise, also the appearances to make sure that that there's not something that's really, turns out to be something that's really ugly, and everybody's wondering what the hell these things are hanging out here for.
And they don't
They've
have to
shown
notify
results.
anyone.
Pardon me?
They don't have to notify our.
Well, I think they basically, once they go through a statewide proposal, I do think that, I haven't read the legislation, but this is what they've been negotiating. And I sent you that PowerPoint.
Yeah, and that was
And
kind of,
you might want
that's
to
kind of
share it with
argument,
people.
the dollar
Kind
amount.
of the dollar amounts and the different arguments that they've been using and what the proponents are suggesting. In talking to the proponents, they seem willing to want to sit down. I always think it comes down to dollars and cents. So once everybody figures out, where the magic number is.
Right.
I'm sure this will all go.
All right, I'm gonna run back in the meeting.
So,
When you say this will all go away,
well, everybody will be in agreement.
I think we do need to keep this on our, I think we need to make
Oh, absolutely.
And so everyone knows.
I wouldn't
as-
suggest doing a resolution right now.
Not a resolution, I'm not saying resolution, but I think we need to have this on our high watch list, on our priority of making sure that this, we can figure out how we can get this going. We're not gonna, we don't need this book, you know, printed and set next month or even December, we're talking for the spring session. And maybe something could be, we're just kind of keeping this on the watch. And also, so everyone knows, as we're looking, and Brent has been definitely following all this, but it has not affected Will County yet, so it's kind of, it hasn't came into the county, it's been really more with our.
We were invited to, well, we kind of interject ourselves into one meeting, and that's why I was kind of surprised that the county of Will wasn't notified of any of this local government meeting that they held up in Lake County. Little surprised that Lake County held the meeting at the Northwest Government League, and they didn't make anybody else aware of it. Now, other areas people were aware, but we didn't get invited. So, so I don't know, your friends up in Lake County, I would suggest if they want to communicate, they should try to communicate.
We're actually going to talk about that this afternoon.
Instead of suggesting that we should be with them, and then don't invite us to the table.
Nope, that's already duly noted. Duly noted, we're talking this afternoon. We tried to talk yesterday, like one time.
Yeah, I think they're drumming this up a little bit more than should be, but that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing, and I know the Illinois Association of County Board Members had a large meet, like an informational meeting through the state where everyone came out to Bloomington, and Dave Taft was actually going to go out there, and something came up, and he was pulled from that meeting. And then we all had meetings. Right, Reagan? Yes. Yes, you're right, Susan. That's what she said, all right. And then, yeah, so this will just be, like I said, there's no hurry of this. It'll actually be a agenda item. I don't know if Sue had just left from the health department. I didn't know if any other issues came up that we want to discuss that for the agenda if we want to do. I got to tell you, it was so wonderful last year how we had the department heads come in, because that was always, you know, if we all recall last year, you know, everyone, what, I didn't know this was coming down. So we had the health department and, you know, everyone coming in different intervals.
Well, it's also because a lot of these departments, like the clerk's offices and they all have their own associations, and sometimes they're running something that we might not be paralleling or even know about until it's too late, and then all of a sudden it's a brush fire turning into a forest fire. And
Right. The
it's helpful
associations
to
get
kind of
difficult,
know-
right, for you to
helpful
navigate.
to know and understand, you know, and you guys understand what they want to do. That's all.
And that's true. And
That was the
Reagan,
reason half the people come in and kind of indicate some of their priorities.
and I would really like to have a better procedure, a better process on if something is going down, say, Dean, you're going, you know, with the association, you got an alert of, for us, so when you're getting with that, because Brent is always down there in Julie, so he'd be able to help, he can go and give you that bottom line insight, but if, I don't know, if you would feel more comfortable, like funneling it through Reagan and having it come to us, or to me, and then we could go on that and have it with Brent, but we need to have a better procedure so we know what's going on and there's no confusion, and not just, I mean, it's any, we have, I know with Nancy Boots, you know, there's been times that with the association of stuff coming in,
Well,
we'll
the
give a call.
horse has left the barn, and it's very difficult to bring the horse back into the barn once it's gone.
Right.
So it's
So it's
sometimes
almost
we get a
right.
little bit too late.
And that would almost be something I would like to have, where we can do, you know, we already have, everyone came in, I don't know if we have to go through that whole process again next month, but I would like to maybe put out something with the department heads of a better procedure of anything that comes in to be able to be funneled into, at least with us three, so we can help watch and know, and there's no surprises, because that also happens to Julie and Brett, because they know, you know, they're Will County, they're down, you know, at the Capitol, and they'll get your lobby, they'll get a health department, or Nancy Boots, or the associations coming up and ask, hey, where's Will County on this? And then it goes, hey, calls me, what were we at? I don't know. So we could just keep that up, that we work, again, back to my original statement, we work a lot better in numbers. So, that'll be good. But we'll get more, so it'll be on Tuesday, we'll wrap up the priorities for next month, and we'll also try on that for our federal. So, is there any other questions? Any other business, new business? No need for executive? Public comment? Motion to adjourn, okay, motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Motion adjourned. Thank you, everyone, so much.